Imagine entering your neighborhood grocery store, prepared to load up your basket with everything you need, such as your favorite snacks, your morning energy boost, or the essentials for family dinners, and then finding that everything is gone. The typical suspects, like your rice, that ideal coffee bag, or even something as basic as potato chips. Doesn't that seem like a nightmare? The problem is that this might actually happen to us sooner rather than later. This is more likely than ever due to global tariffs, supply chain disruptions, and economic shifts. Will your daily necessities no longer be available on store shelves in the future? It's happening now and has the potential to alter your way of life, so it's not just a worry for the far future. The 10 things that might soon be more difficult to find at the shop are discussed in detail in this video, along with the unexpected consequences they might have on your life. The purpose of this is to wake you up and prepare you for what's ahead, not to frighten you. Welcome back. Let's get started. My name is Grant Mercer. Let's start with coffee. Imagine waking up following a long night feeling exhausted and sleepy. You drag yourself into the kitchen, already anticipating the rush of caffeine that awaits you. Anticipating your first drink, you insert your preferred coffee pod into the machine. The coffee is either completely gone or, worse, so expensive that it feels like you're purchasing a luxury. No, this isn't a nightmare. As shortages begin to occur and coffee prices in the United States skyrocket, it's becoming a very real prospect. This is also not a temporary issue. Why? Climate shift. Crops in coffee-growing regions like Brazil and Colombia are being destroyed by droughts and floods. These nations, which were formerly well known for producing coffee, no longer have the ideal growing conditions. Moreover, supply chain disruptions, soaring transportation costs, and additional tariffs are exacerbating the situation. The cost of coffee, whether you buy it at your neighborhood cafe or the grocery store, is gradually increasing. What once seemed like a daily ritual, your morning cup, is now becoming a luxury. It becomes a difficult decision for families that have made coffee a daily ritual. Do you relinquish it, or do you manage to fit it into your spending plan? Coffee has always been a source of solace, a time for oneself, and the possibility of losing it could change everything. What would it be like to give up your morning coffee? Rice comes next. According to the most recent USDA data, the price of long grain white rice in the United States has increased by more than 20% in just 1 year, which may seem unreal. The average price of rice imports in 2024 was $84 per ton, the highest since the 2008 financial crisis. Millions of homes depend on rice, one of those basic pantry necessities. However, it's getting tougher to locate these days, and when you do, the cost is much higher. As a result of consumers hoarding their favorite bags, rice shelves frequently become empty within hours after being restocked. The cause of this? It goes beyond inflation. Over 40% of the world's rice comes from India, whose export prohibition has rocked international markets. Everything is being made worse by shipping expenses and transportation problems from Asia to the United States. The scarcity of rice is being exacerbated by geopolitical tensions, fuel prices, and container limitations. Rice was formerly the go-to inexpensive meal for families looking to make ends meet. However, even that basic item is now more costly and more difficult to obtain. Poorer nations are no longer the only ones affected by this. Target, Costco, and Walmart are also being impacted. Therefore, be ready for sticker shock the next time you enter a store and notice the cost of a single bag. It may cause you to reconsider your shopping list. In addition to hurting your pocketbook, rising rice costs also undermine your sense of security with each meal. When you need to extend a meal, feed a family, or make ends meet, rice is that comfort food you can always rely on. But it's not just about the price when that security is under jeopardy. It's also about what it stands for. Our perspective on our everyday activities has changed, and nobody wants to experience that kind of uncertainty. Let's now discuss olive oil. Olive oil, which was once praised as the liquid gold of the Mediterranean, has long been a mainstay in kitchens all over the world because of its heart-healthy properties and rich flavor. However, in 2025, the price is another factor that has contributed to the liquid gold's reputation. A premium steak can now be purchased for less money than a bottle of extra virgin olive oil. Really? Recent statistics show that the price of olive oil has increased by more than 50%, and in some places by as much as 70%. Depending on the source A 500 milliliter bottle now retails for $9 to $12. That's a significant increase for middle class households, making a once affordable kitchen necessity a luxury. What's happening then? Olive yields have drastically decreased as a result of droughts in Spain and Italy, which together produce more than 65% of the world's olive oil. In 2024, for instance, production fell by 60% in Spain. The United States, a major importer of olive oil, is feeling the pinch as Europe struggles. Families are now being forced to return to less expensive, less healthful cooking oil options, even though olive oil was formerly a cost-effective and healthful substitute. Many will have to make this difficult decision. Although most people cannot pay the pricing, olive oil may still be available on the market. Let's move on to a slightly more nostalgic treat. Potato chips. Do you recall those carefree afternoons when you would have a few fries from your favorite fast food restaurant, open a bag of Lay's, or talk with friends? There has always been more to potato chips than just food. In a hectic existence, they provide a little relaxation and enjoyment. But by 2025, you might not be able to get that beloved snack. Not only are potatoes becoming more expensive, albeit they have increased by almost 35% in the past year. An unreliable supply chain is the true problem. Snack manufacturers are finding it more difficult to stay competitive due to poor potato harvests in Idaho, which produces 30% of the potatoes grown in the United States, as well as rising transportation and packaging expenses. The outcome? Smaller bags of chips at the same price as before, and sometimes even less fries with your combination meal, is known as shrinkflation. These small pleasures, such as a comfort dish or a quick snack after a long day, may seem unimportant. However, it's more than just a snack lost when even those begin to fade. It's a tiny bit of happiness that helps us feel normal throughout difficult circumstances. The worst part is that imported spices are involved. After a long day, picture yourself at home, ready to prepare your favorite comfort food. You season your soup with a little ginger, a dash of black pepper, and a little nutmeg. However, you notice that your spice jars are nearly empty and that they are no longer as accessible as they used to be. Important imported spices such as Indian cinnamon, Indonesian nutmeg, Vietnamese black pepper, and ginger have been more difficult to locate on store shelves throughout the previous 12 months. Due to additional taxes, transportation expenses, and port delays, the cost of importing spices has increased by more than 40%. The outcome? Your food may taste a little less interesting, but for many immigrant populations, it's a link to their cultural history rather than just a taste. The price of a tiny container of black pepper has doubled from the previous year. Once a staple in curries and lattes, spices like turmeric are vanishing from stores like Whole Foods and Trader Joe's. Cooking is only one aspect of it. Another is having the flexibility to season your food any way you desire without worrying about the expense. Even though it's a little item, when it disappears, it can seem like something bigger is vanishing. Let's talk about cocoa, more especially the cocoa that enables all of your favorite chocolate confections. For a long time, cocoa has been the main component in everything from cereal, biscuits, and candy bars to chocolate milk. However, the price of cocoa has soared by more than 130% in 2024, shattering numerous records. What's happening then? More than 60% of the world's cocoa is supplied by nations like Ghana and Ivory Coast, which are the primary source of the issue. These areas are facing a surge in agricultural illnesses, including fungal infections and viruses that cause root rot, as well as unpredictable weather patterns like El Niño. The outcome? The production of cocoa has drastically decreased, unable to satisfy the rising demand worldwide. And it's having a significant impact on American consumers. Supermarket prices for cocoa powder have skyrocketed, raising the cost of everything from chocolate milk to biscuits. Depending on the brand and region, the cost of cocoa-based products has risen by 30 to 50% in the past year, according to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. A box of cocoa powder that used to cost $6 is now almost $12. Stores are reducing their inventory of cocoa items in addition to the price increases. Because of the high costs and unstable supplies, smaller shops in particular have completely stopped importing. Even cafes and bakeries are raising their prices or moving to less expensive options. Cocoa might go from being a regular pantry staple to an occasional luxury item for middle-class and working-class households if this tendency keeps up. The idea of giving up chocolate bars as a quick snack? We may soon have to deal with that fact. Let's now examine reasonably priced frozen fish. Frozen fish has been a necessary and reasonably priced protein for many American households, particularly those in coastal locations. However, that once affordable basic is now rapidly becoming a luxury. It's due to a confluence of tightened import regulations and disruptions in the global supply chain, not because people don't want it. In nations like China, Thailand, India, and Vietnam, where fishing and processing expenses are far cheaper than in the United States, a large portion of reasonably priced frozen seafood is imported. However, since 2023, the United States has levied punitive tariffs and anti-dumping taxes on a variety of imported seafood, including squid and shrimp. Furthermore, there are other international variables at work as well. Climate change is causing a decline in U.S. seafood catches, particularly in areas like Alaska and the Gulf of Mexico. Marine life has significantly decreased as a result of warmer summers, colder winters, and changing ocean currents. According to NOAA data, seafood landings in the United States fell 17% in 2024 when compared to the 5-year average. For customers, this means that the once popular, reasonably priced frozen seafood is now harder to get and more costly. In just 8 months, frozen shrimp prices in some Midwestern shops have skyrocketed from $7.99 to over $12 a pound. Additionally, frozen fish fillets are more expensive and more difficult to locate. Many families are choosing to eat less seafood entirely or substitute less expensive options like beans or pork. The disappearance of reasonably priced frozen seafood is significant because it signals that a once everyone accessible meal is rapidly becoming a luxury. Let's finally discuss almonds. Often referred to as the brown gold of the food business, these little powerhouses are now a common ingredient in everything from cereals to nut butters to almond milk. However, there are several significant obstacles facing the almond business. The future appears bleak, prices are rising, and supply is decreasing. Farmers are finding it more difficult to keep up with the increasing demand for almonds due to environmental issues. The price of almonds is expected to increase as climate change continues to alter growth conditions, particularly in important almond-producing regions like California. Therefore, you may soon find yourself spending a lot more for this once affordable food, whether you like almond milk in your coffee or use almond butter as a nutritious snack. Did you know that one location supplies more than 80% of the almonds grown worldwide? California, that is. Furthermore, even though that seems like a trustworthy and solid supply, it leaves the almond market extremely exposed. Almond orchards in California, which is already experiencing years of extreme drought, demand an incredible quantity of water. It takes about 15 liters of water to produce 16 almonds, which is a huge amount for a state that is already dealing with ongoing water problems. Furthermore, the blooming seasons of almond trees have been disturbed by climate change. Farmers' difficulties are understandable when you consider the fall in bee populations, which are essential for pollination. Many are choosing to switch to less water-intensive crops or lower their acreage of almonds since they are paying exorbitant rates to rent beehives for pollination. The price of almonds has skyrocketed due to this confluence of environmental factors. The Almond Board of California reports that the cost of whole almonds increased by 28% in 2024 alone. Additionally, those growing expenses are affecting goods like cereals, nut butters, and almond milk. The price increase is making many middle-class and working-class Americans rethink their previous acceptance of almonds as a plant-based, healthful protein. A once cheap pantry essential is now considered a luxury good. Many families may soon be unable to afford almonds if climate change and water scarcity don't get better. Let's now discuss tropical fruits. Imagine this. On a sweltering summer morning, you pass the fruit section, enticed by the sight of ripe mangoes, juicy pineapples, and golden bananas. However, your heart falls when you see the pricing. Once a mainstay in every shopping basket, tropical fruits are now harder to find and more expensive. These fruits, bananas, papayas, pineapples, mangoes, and even avocados, are having a lot of problems. The lengthy journey these fruits take across oceans, sometimes thousands of miles, to get to your neighborhood grocer is the issue, not just the quantity. The offender? Climate shift. Major producers of tropical fruit such as Thailand, Ecuador, the Philippines, and Costa Rica are having difficulty with erratic weather patterns. Crop failure and lower yields are being caused by natural disasters including floods and storms, as well as unstable temperatures and erratic rainfall. For example, consider Mexican mangoes. There won't be as many of those lovely mangoes when you're wanting them because of last year's torrential rains, which caused production to plummet by 15%. Bananas have also been severely impacted. Two of the biggest producers of bananas, Ecuador and Costa Rica, have been severely impacted by tropical storms and changing weather patterns. The outcome? USDA data shows that banana prices have increased by more than 30% in only the last year. It's not just bananas either. Additionally, papayas, pineapples, and avocados are becoming less common on store shelves. However, it doesn't end there. Tropical fruits cost more to ship because they must be kept cool to stay fresh. Additionally, the trip from farm to shop is getting more difficult and costly due to disturbances in the global supply chain. The majority of these imports pass through major U.S. ports in Florida and California, which are experiencing congestion as a result of manpower shortages and challenges obtaining shipping boats. Customers are consequently left with exorbitant costs for the fruits they used to take for granted. That mango snack in the afternoon or that banana in the morning, many families now consider it to be a luxury. What was once a cheap, sweet treat can soon turn into an uncommon luxury. Once a popular choice for quick, healthful lunches, tropical fruits are now considered a luxury that many people cannot afford. These fruits are disappearing from American shopping carts, whether you're looking for a cool dessert to beat the heat or a colorful fruit bowl to start your day. This is a blatant indication that there is a major problem with our food supply chain, not merely a shift in what is popular. What was once so commonplace is now frighteningly uncommon. Let's now discuss canned meals, which we have all relied on for convenience. Canned foods have long been a mainstay in American pantries, particularly during emergencies or when we need a quick, inexpensive supper. When we needed them most, these products, from canned beans and tuna to fruits and stews, were there. However, they are becoming more costly and difficult to locate. Raw material shortages are the first of many complicated causes. For instance, tuna in a can. Tuna stocks are declining as a result of overfishing and the effects of climate change, according to fishermen. Congested maritime lanes have caused shipping costs to soar, and tuna processing facilities are having difficulty obtaining enough fish. Because of this, canned tuna supply have drastically decreased, and prices have increased by around 20% in the past year. It's not just fish either. There is also a shortage of vegetables, corn, beans, and other staples for canned foods. Prices rise even more when crops fail because there aren't enough raw ingredients to fill those cans. There's more to it, though. The process of canning itself uses a lot of energy because it requires a lot of electricity for both manufacture and refrigeration. Over the past year, energy prices have increased, which has increased the cost of canned foods. Low-income families are being disproportionately affected by the canned food scarcity, which is more than just a minor nuisance. These families frequently rely on inexpensive prepared foods for their daily meals, but when costs rise, those options become more and more unaffordable. In fact, during crises like pandemics or natural disasters, tinned goods are frequently a lifesaver. When there aren't many other fresh options available, they offer a vital source of nourishment. But these once dependable pantry staples are now harder to get due to production issues and growing costs. The truth is that items that we have always taken for granted, such as rice, coffee, and canned goods, may not always be readily available on store shelves. There are more significant economic forces at work, such as inflation and growing transportation expenses, than just manufacturing issues. This serves as a reminder to all of us to reconsider our consumption patterns and look into practical substitutes. I hope you now have a better understanding of the changes that are on the horizon. Naturally, the information and occurrences covered here are predicated on existing patterns, and things may change in the future. Please remember to like and subscribe if you found this material helpful and want to be informed of any future updates. I appreciate you seeing, and I hope to see you in the next video.